It came down hard on the third round, broke the third round. And also then the third round started to spark a small explosion going
How are you? I feel that he is moved to Harvard.
Washington, D.C.
Yeah, but that's easy. So we were doing what I told you. We were doing an exercise we would actually like this group of people were doing it and we were from the whole. And we always started crafting things, and we moved to the park, and had the class actually through the park.
I will tell you this, I can illustrate the rush hour, I really have foreseen. And you can still go for reduce the cards with the frequency share, but I don't know.
I'm taking in
it takes a little over an hour,
and then putting the power on it. Right, so
run more trains.
I really like it, and the workload is that's good. That's what you want. And in the end of the year, after you have to do a assignment and it's very good.
And a lot of students there are
So,
So many classes.
Jeff Baker is the teacher.
Really?
Because he was a guy from Illinois. He looks like Jeff.
Yeah?
And then like the managers. So he speaks like Jeff, and he acts like Jeff, like saying this, like your brother, and
I say quite, not very. Bad news is that at the same time, he's one of the yes, they aim to me to be
In this area, okay. Great. I'm not mic'd. Hi everyone, welcome. We're gonna go ahead and get started. Can everyone in the back hear what I'm saying without a mic? Yes, I see some nods and a thumbs up, great. Thank you all for coming. Welcome to the 8th Annual Transportation Showcase. This is hosted by the MIT Transportation Club, which is an all-student-run organization that tries to connect students, faculty, alums, working on transportation from across the different departments, research groups, labs here at MIT. And so I am going to keep my remarks very brief. First, I just really want to thank the sponsors who have helped to make this event possible. So our gold sponsors this year are Lyft and Caliper Corporation, and we have 4 silver sponsors: Cambridge Systematics, Sintra US, EDR Group, and AECOM. So thank you very much to the sponsors. You will see all of them upstairs in the second part of the event, and so hopefully we'll go to talk to them and the other great companies that have joined us. So, my name is Joanna Moody. I'm the president of MIT Transportation Club this year. I'm a PhD candidate in transport. I also want to recognize 2 people who should come here, who are the coordinators for this year's showcase and have really done a lot of the back-end work to make this event possible. So that's Andre Snook and Adham Kalila. So please join me in a round of applause. Great, so without further ado, we're going to kick off the event with our exceptional keynote speaker, Emily Gates. She is the Director of Operational Strategy at Motivate Inc. and also an MIT alumna. And so we're really happy to welcome her here. I'm going to let her give you a better self-introduction, but please join me in a round of applause for welcoming Emily.
This is an amazing opportunity for me to be as loud as I want, so I'm going to take advantage of it. I was at a coffee shop this morning, Area 4, and I got hushed by like a gentleman who thought I was being too loud, so I'm going to get it all out here. I'm Emily Gates. I graduated from the MST program in 2015, and since then have had 4 jobs in 3 years, all at the same company. My most favorite of those jobs was clearly when I was the general manager of Hubway, which, if you don't know, is the bike share system here in Cambridge and Boston and Somerville and Brookline. I've since then, I spent a year doing that, and now I'm the Director of Operational Strategy. I do things as varied as implementing in-house call centers and supporting new self-help websites to changing the way we repair bicycle processes to expanding our ability to deal with like credit card fraud. Turns out people like using cards to steal bicycles when they could be stealing chips. I'm not sure. But I have a clicker. Yes! I don't like the clicker. So today I'm going to talk to you about bike share. A free lunch. Does so-called zero-cost bike share actually work? First, I want to give you the fast-paced, exciting world of bike share by introducing you to clickers that work. Clickers that work. So I told Jennifer, who's like in charge of this, that I would have these 2 IT problems while I was up here. We are experiencing the first one. Okay. Well, there is a second slide. Anyone? No? No one's here. There's no one running towards me. I promise I'm usually pretty good at figuring it out. Joanna? Oh dear. Okay. Right? You know those commercials like, I'm Mac, I'm PC? I'm PC. This is a Mac. It's live streaming, so it's very fancy and cool. But advancing the slides.
We can't advance the slides.
Okay. I'll worry about it. Okay, so in the last 9 months, we have launched a bike share program sponsored by a car company. We have, not me, but the industry has launched over 1,000 e-bikes across several cities that don't lock to anything except themselves and maybe a street sign. We have seen huge, absolutely astounding growth in dockless bike share, as it's considered. This is outside of a train station in Shanghai. We have seen crazy numbers of pictures like this that we haven't yet figured out how to absorb because it's like the sheer vastness of this many thousands of bicycles. And this is just the last 9 months. We have seen in the last 10 years an explosion, 1,600 bike share systems across the globe. You can see, like, yes, North America plays a small part of it, but like China is just imploding with bicycles. We're talking about like a whole new ballgame. What's going on? Well, urbanization is increasing strain on aging transit infrastructure. We've got decades of underinvestment that many people in this room know on a day-to-day basis. What you're seeing in this chart is, or of this map is, population density in proportion to GDP. And as you can see, like the places where the money is happening, the places where people are living, are places that are ripe for bike share. I have a couple of slides in here that are more New York focused. I apologize. It's just because I think this one on the right is so hilarious. So the L train is shutting down and it goes to Williamsburg where all the hipsters live. And it's not coming back for forever. So this like countdown sign says 3 years is the next L train coming. And then right after that it says L train, some sort of curse word that you can insert. We've got innovation of the wazoo. Everyone's getting smartphones. We've got apps for every type of shared mobility. We have surface congestion, which is continuing to grow, which makes bike share even more appealing because of the physical space that is taken up by bike share is significantly smaller than any other mode. And a study that was done by a data scientist in New York assessed that over the course of the last 3 years, taxis are losing out to bike share. The chart on the left shows the percentage of weekday taxi trips within the area that City Bike now stands that would have been faster taken on a City Bike. And you can see that this number just continues to grow as congestion increases and bike lanes become more prevalent. One of my favorite quotes just came out in a Traffic in the City study in London, which says, the number of cyclists counted during the morning peak hour has more than doubled since 2007. That's 10 years, making it the single largest mode of transport counted on city streets from 8 to 9 a.m. Like, who would have thought that in 2007, or even in 2010, or even in 2015, that we would be talking about bicycles? Like, that's unfathomable, especially in a city like London. The case for public investment in bike infrastructure continues to grow and move into the mainstream. What you're seeing in the middle is a chart that shows what happens when you invest some amount of dollars to increase what's considered a quality-adjusted life year, which, like, to me means like living longer and living better. And if you compared the cost of increasing for 1 year, the cost of investing in Medicaid to increase the lifespan of 1 year, you're talking about $67,000 a year. For dialysis, $129,000 a year. By adding bike lanes in New York City, it's costing $1,300. These are pennies. This doesn't take a lot of effort. I like this quote: we conclude that investments in bicycle lanes come with an exceptionally good value because they simultaneously address multiple public health problems. Bike lanes are more cost-effective than the majority of preventative approaches used today. Policy consensus is translating to growth in cycling infrastructure that enables bike share. This is happening in New York, it's happening in Boston. New York wants at least 50 lanes, bike lanes annually by 2022. Boston in their Go Boston 2030 initiative, as well as a target of 2020 to increase the share of commute trips to 10%. Chicago is investing in over 500 miles of new bikeways over the next 8 years. This area of transportation is exploding, and I'm so excited to be a part of it. This is a video, but increased pressure and attention on the utilization of scarce public space means that. This is a video that shows, over the course of an afternoon, in the Flatiron District, which is in the middle of Manhattan, the utilization of a city bike station and 4 car parking spots. They take up about the same square footage, and you can see person after person taking bikes in and out, while the car spaces, a total of 4 cars, 4 individuals get to use that public space. Meantime, we've got dozens of people utilizing this bike share station. It's a no-brainer what we should be considering investing in.
No idea how to make this happen. You said bottom right.
It's no escape. Escape.
That's better. Yeah. Thanks, guys. That's 2. There can be no more.
There's 3.
There we go. Okay. Cool. So now I'm going to give you a brief history of bike share, and let me tell you it's brief because it hasn't been around that long. It started in Amsterdam, moved on to London, moved on to Paris, moved on to Montreal, moved on to DC, then it went global. 1965, bike share begins. I know there are people who were born before that in the room. Not going to tell you how many, but there are definitely more than a few. We had anarchists who founded bike share in Amsterdam, which I find to be hugely entertaining because, like, they were like, we're giving up capitalism, and we don't want to exchange money anymore. We're going to paint a whole bunch of bikes white, not to be confused with those bikes. And then we're going to get John Lennon and Yoko Ono to, like, pose with these 200 bikes. They were immediately all stolen. I mean, like, vandalized, stolen. But it was really amazing because, like, it was a statement against the growing number of cars. We were changing the world with bikes. And it was called the White Bicycle Plan, very obviously named. And the guy who founded that, after it was a woeful failure in terms of surviving the streets, went on to form the first locking bicycle share system in Copenhagen. It allowed users to share bicycles throughout the city. It was fully commercially funded by tiny advertisements on both the wheels where the happy faces are and along the bridge. They also had a problem with bikes being stolen because all it required was you put in a coin, you get a bike, it's yours until you return it. And the coin was 10 krona, which I don't even know what that was, but it was not enough to make a difference. So this program was fully funded by advertising. They had almost no city support. And we ended up in a situation where the bikes lasted until 2012, and then the city said, well, maybe we'll keep doing this, but probably not. And they regretted that decision because 2 years later they had another bike share system around. So it started to become really powerful. But that was 30 years later, after the first sort of founding of this idea of bike share. In 1996 to 2005, major ad agencies entered the game. This was like all across Europe. JCDecaux and Clear Channel worked with cities, got trenching in so that the docks could be inside the pavement, but they had to offer basically a free product. And that's the way many of the current operators in Europe still to this day operate, is very, very low cost, highly subsidized public systems. Paris was a game changer. This was the first city that went to huge numbers of bikes in a short period of time and proved to the rest of the world that this was something worth trying out. 4 years after it began, they were up to 1 bike per 97 people. They had 20,000 bikes in Paris, and they were being used over 85,000 times a day. This was unheard of, unspeakable, but it led to the era of publicly funded bike share. As you can see on this list, Montreal, Hubway, our beloved, Chicago, DC, Columbus, just because I wanted to throw a little tiny one in there, and then of course London. And all of these are publicly funded, publicly owned, publicly invested. Some of them have private operators, some of them have public operators, but this was when the FTA grants started pouring in, the local investments started pouring in, and we're not talking about big investments. Like I said, these are small numbers. This is not the Second Avenue subway debacle. In 2015, we hit 1 million bike share bikes worldwide, which was the year that I graduated from grad school. And I'm going to say right now, the year I graduated from grad school, I was highly suggested to me that I should consider working in buses and not bike share. But I looked at 1 million bike share bikes worldwide and I said I can do something with that. In the last 18 months, there's been a huge disruption in this already disruptive industry, and that is China and self-locking bicycles. We have players who have gone from 3 years ago having 0 bikes to having 6.5 million bikes, to having 180 cities. This is unheard of. We're talking about annual rides in the billions. Like, how are we even, how is this even still a thing that we are, not doing or thinking about it? But it also welcomed in this idea that you don't need real public investment. You don't need real public advocacy and input and regulations and permits, nothing. You get this amazing opportunity, but what does it really mean? What are the benefits? What are the costs? So this is a slew of different dockless bike share types, and the eldest among them is actually Jump, because it used to be Social Bicycles, and it was founded in like 2008. So like, ooh, all the way back in 2008, bet you can't remember a movie from back then. This is all brand spanking new technology, and it's making a huge impact on our cities. What are the benefits? Well, you can expand to more of the city. It has lower capital costs because you're not investing in all of these docks, and you're not investing in all of this public space, and you're not stealing parking spots away from the car owners. And you can also fit a ton of bikes in a much smaller part of the world. Because you can stack them next to each other, you can stack them on top of each other, you can stack them underneath things, you can hide them in bushes. But it also means you don't need station permits. You don't need year-and-a-half long processes to get this stuff installed, and you can move really fast, really fast. It has some challenges, right? Like, they're hard to find. Tool Design Group recently went down to DC and assessed the bike share pilot that's going on there, and I'm going to talk to you about it in a second, and found that 30% of the time they couldn't find the bikes that said they were there. That's disappointing when you say like, oh, I got 3 bikes near me. Where are they? There's a big theft and vandalism problem. One of my favorites comes from Dallas, where somebody sawed a bike in half and posted both sides of it to the top of the telephone pole, so it looks like it went through the telephone pole. It's amazing. But also, you know, like, there are huge operational challenges. How do we keep these out of the public right of way? How do we keep them accessible to everyone, and also, you know, not end up turning bike share into a bike share bashing competition, where people who are not already evangelists and already on board with this new fangled ancient technology of bicycles are not going to be persuaded by a bunch of stuff thrown all over the place. And we're not going to pass any ADA rules. And although Dockless Bike Share has an amazing appeal, it has a low barrier to entry, it's like $1 a trip, that's nothing. Except if you need to rely on this as public transportation, or you don't live near a bus line that comes but every 30 minutes, and you need to get places, and it starts to add up. You know, you're talking about going from $1 per trip, okay, take a couple of trips a month, that's pretty reasonable, and why would I buy a different kind of membership, into a place where this becomes hugely expensive and much more unreasonably priced than a monthly MBTA pass. So self-walking bikes are now deployed in several US cities. I mentioned DC, also Seattle, New York released an RFPI, Minneapolis has an RFP, even in the Boston area, outside of the 4 cities covered by Hubway. They put out an RFP to serve communities, and you might have seen Dockless Bike Share around. North San Jose is going to have a pilot system, and various other small systems, or small cities around, including lots of college campuses, are getting on board because, like, hey, it's free, right? How great is that? So I'm now going to tell you what I believe is good bike share. And you can take from that, you know, like, what you will, but these are the principles by which, you know, hypothetically, if I were in charge of a bike share system, I might really want to emphasize. I believe that bike share must be reliable. And I love this quote from MACTO's strategy director. It's more of a situation where a bike could be there. There could be a bike share bike once a week, but that's not transportation. It's not a reliable system, and it's not an equitable system. That's not something anyone could rely on to get to work. So here is a picture of a City Bike train, and I love this because we're moving bikes with bikes, which just like feels just both silly and fun. But also I wanted to show the map of Bike Angels, which is a program that incentivizes customers to move bikes to help other customers. So I have a quiz for the audience. How many bikes does City Bike move in 2017? For reference, they had 16 million trips last year. Any idea how many bikes were moved by the City Bike organization?
2 million.
1.25 million, which I find to be like an impressively ridiculous number of bikes. And not all of them were moved using these bike trains, but a lot of them were. And a lot of them were also moved by bike angels. And a lot of them were also moved, by valets who are like the valet that you have in Chatham. There are valets in New York. They're collecting bikes, they're moving bikes around, they're ensuring that we're getting 10 additional trips for every bike that we're touching. I also believe that bike share must be accessible. This is something that's really important not only to my organization, but also to many of the other organizations that were founded prior to 2014. What you see at the top is Philadelphia's system, where they in between 2015 and 2016 measured the race and ethnicity ratios for monthly pass holders in order to assess how well they were doing at accessing other systems or other minority groups. And the way in which they go about making a change like that is by working with municipalities, working with community partners, teaching people how to use the system, why to use the system, and getting them access for very little money. In New York, we host community bike rides. In Boston, the city of Boston hosts community bike rides in communities with local community leaders who are convincing people that this is a system that can be used to access jobs that are underserved by traditional transit, and we're able to do this in very short order, using very few resources, and getting amazing results. So, how many members of Hubway are associated to the Low-Income Boston or SNAP program? Hint, they have over 15,000 active members. $750. Pretty decent. What I'm more impressed with is Ford Go Bike, which we launched in June, and 20% of new members are paying $5 a year to ride. This is from partnerships that are really strong in the community. This is from giving people lots of ways to access the system. One of the benefits of programs like this is the ability to reach out to people who don't have smartphones, who aren't as well connected as everyone in this room. We offer cash payments. We are at local stores. We are recruiting on the street, trying to bring more value of bike share as a transit system to communities. I also believe that bike share is not disposable. So I don't know how many people have seen this photo, but these are all bicycles. And these are cranes. That's a crane. And these are huge full-size trucks. And that is a lot of bicycles. I like to tell the story of Blue Go-Go because I find it to be really impressive and also really disappointing. It was launched in November of 2016. They raised $90 million, which by the way is a lot of money in the world of bike share. They deployed 700,000 bicycles in a year, and then they went bankrupt. And didn't give people their refunds, like they put down deposits, didn't give any deposits back, and they abandoned all of these bicycles on the street. 700,000 bicycles in a year on the street. It's so important to maintain public infrastructure. Everyone in this room knows that. We repaired over 150,000 bicycles last year in New York alone. And this is something that nobody wants to see. It's not sustainable, it's not a good business model, it's disappointing, because I think the reason a lot of people want to see more bikes on the street is to reduce carbon emissions, to reduce waste, to bring about a more sustainable world, and we're not going to get there by creating disposable bicycles. I also believe, because I'm a data nerd, that bike-share must be open data. So this is a screenshot from the bike-share hack night that went on the day before Valentine's Day. There's lots of articles that come up. I love this one, Are Dockless Bikes a Cybersecurity Threat? Like, that seems to me a little bit like alarmist, you know, like, oh, they're selling our data to the cloud. But I think it's important as transportation planners, as community partners, as municipal partners, to really think about the impact that all of these trips has on the way we think about how to design cities. Like, we can decide where people need facilities like bus stops, like bike share drop-off locations, even if they're not like a station, but we can make these choices based on informed information. Where are people picking this stuff up? Where are they dropping it off? Like, imagine the value in your own minds that you could create with that kind of information that right now a lot of other providers, especially like new ones, are not providing to us. It's really important. So briefly, I'd like to give a tale of two cities, which is two approaches that U.S. cities have taken in case anyone doesn't recognize Dallas. That's what Dallas looks like, and that's me being an uninformed, like, Northeast region person, sorry. I'm sure I'm offending like that one Texan in the room. And then DC. So as you can see, this is what bike share looks like in Dallas. This is what bike share looks like in DC. They both have dockless systems. They both started in the last 6 months. Dallas, zero cost. They took a market approach. They dumped 20,000 bikes on the ground in less than 6 months. Oh my gosh, what did they do with all those bicycles? It feels more like an invasion of a low-quality bike that people don't respect versus a high-quality transit that people can rely on and respect. And I love this Lime Bikes Dallas version of roadkill. And it's crazy. There are bikes on every corner, and some of them are well stacked and covered in dust, and some of them are reasonably used. But what you're not getting, if you're not getting those like single occupancy vehicle drivers to be like, oh, I'm going to try one of these bikes, like they look like trash. They're everywhere. DC, much more measured approach. Put out a permitting process. They still have a couple of questions like, oh, there's an OFO in 4 blocks. They got to make all these mental math. Maybe I'll try the spin. I got to download 6 apps. They're still working on it, but they created a pilot. They went through with it. It's still going on. Go to DC, try it out. But they're getting this data that we've been missing from bike share systems, and they're using it for assessing what the rules look like, what we should really be thinking about as a municipality when we're talking about bringing something that appears to be free to a new city. So what does the next 3 to 5 years look like? We're now over $3 billion in VC valuations for bike share companies, but what we need are transportation companies, not technology companies. People keep being like, oh, technology company, I don't know what Uber is, it's fine. But we need transportation companies, we need to be operators, we need to be thinking about the impact that our companies have on people's day-to-day lives. So what I see is consolidation, which I have represented by this really creative person who made a massive, tall city bike by putting 2 frames on top of each other, and I find that really amusing. So I expect that we're going to go from 77 bike share companies to, like, 10 good ones, and that will bring about great change to the industry. We're going to see a lot more bicycles. It's not going to end. It's coming. It's a wave. Let it wash over you. I hope it's not going to be like this, because, like, I don't know how you get to that bicycle. But if you want that one, you should probably figure out how to get to it. we're going to see transit integration. We launched an integration, Motivate launched an integration with Clipper in the Bay Area when we went live. It's been really successful, and Pittsburgh has transit integration. We're working on that across the board, including in Chicago. Montreal already has it. Like, we need to get better about making it easier for people to use our stuff. We want city input. This is the technical proposal that I dropped off on a Hubway when I had to renew the contract. And I covered it with stickers, and it was like a nice art project. But it's really important to have municipal partners and to pay attention to the expertise that they can provide. And then finally, bike share is not a bubble. We're not going anywhere. In spite of what some in the transit community wish would happen. I just wanted to give you some stats. At Hubway, ridership now rivals Silver Line 1 and 2. So if you get that wonderful free Silver Line connection at South Station, like that's how many rides are going on every day at Hubway. We're getting 3 trips per bike per day in winter in Boston. That's crazy. I mean, people are really using these bikes, and they're using the crap out of them, even though, we expanded by 10 stations last year, which is piddly. But this year, there's going to be 100 stations. It's going to go from 200 to 300 stations this year, which is tiny in comparison to 20,000 bikes in 6 months in Dallas. But like, think of the implications of what 1,800 bicycles have done for this community so far. So even in China, bike share is not a bubble. We're seeing 16 to 23 million bikes, 220 million trips, and $2.6 billion in savings of traffic congestion-related costs. Now, this is a number released by the Chinese government. Even if you divided that number by 4, it's still a big freaking number. So, is it like getting a free lunch? Is there such thing as a free lunch at bike share? Well, let's put the following in place first. It's hard to do for free, but maybe. Bike share should be reliable to find. It should lock to something, even if it's not a dock. It should be easily parkable. It should be well built and well maintained and not disposable. It should be intelligently funded through strong relationships with municipalities. And it should be accessible to all, both geographically and income-based. Questions?
So where do you see systems like Portland, Oregon's partially dockless system fitting in?
Oh, I love it. It's a Motivate system. We are able to learn a lot about the travel patterns of people while providing them with what we call like in-hub and out-of-hub offerings. So the way the system works now is it's using social bicycles equipment, and you can lock it to a station, which are very similar but not as crazy expensive as the ones that are outside on the street here. But you can also leave it out of hub, which means you can lock it to a public bike rack. And what we found is that there are some parts of cities that are really beneficial for a more open policy, where they don't get the same level of heavy ridership as a really downtown area. And it allows us to have the flexibility to specify zones where it's okay to lock to a public rack, because it's not as necessary to create like those transit routes that you would want to see in a heavily dense area. And it's also not overwhelming public racks in places where it's really important to keep parking under control and allow people to own their own bicycles. So it's a really beneficial system for us, and it helps us learn more about how to do this mixed fleet kind of future that is coming.
In cities where there's a lot of hills,
less.
Less common or harder? There's a lot of hills in cities like Hong Kong.
Oh gosh. So having recently been to Hong Kong, I was like, oh God, I don't even know how we would do this. But, so that's why lots of companies, including my own, are introducing bikes in the way to help people get over the hill, so to speak, on bike share. We do offer, like, there are some systems that do not offer gearing on their bicycles. I do not recommend that. And if you have ever ridden a Hubway, know that, like, basically 2 and 1 are just, like, gimmies. Like, I don't even know why we have those. But, and that's because, like, we don't have really big hills. But even in a place like San Francisco, which is hugely hilly, we are still seeing huge ridership patterns, 5,000 trips a day, growing every week. Full of hills, but e-bikes are really going to be a game changer in getting more people who are not hardcore interested in sweating on the way to work, interested in the product. But gearing is really important on that, and it's also important to place stations in places where people would want to bike. So I'm not about to recommend that we go in and say, like, we're going to do Hong Kong now without, like, a really, really good product for that environment.
What about liability? Say you're a pedestrian walking down the street and one of your bikes hits somebody. Who's responsible? How does that work?
The person riding the bicycle is responsible.
Is there some contract?
Yes, so a user agreement they sign, probably their life away. I gotta be honest, it's like 150 pages of stuff, so I'm sure there's like a couple of meows in there. But in addition to meows, I think it states that much like a car owner who is responsible for their actions while driving a car, a person who is riding one of our bicycles is also responsible for their actions.
Because I know autonomous vehicles, that's one of the big goes is, you know, who's responsible? The software manufacturer, the car owner, the owner of the driver in the car.
I am so glad I am not a lawyer, because that would be really painful to go through. And it's not, I mean, it's philosophical and it has large implications on where that industry is going, for sure.
I think my question actually follows up the message is, in terms of safety, do you guys have data with how bike share accident frequency compares to non-bike share accident frequency? Like, before bike share programs existed, what was the rate of accident per bike rider versus?
I should pay more attention to like those City Lab articles that come out. Yes, we collect information on incidents that occur on our bicycles. I imagine there are those who have done studies on it. In general, bike share has made bicycling in cities safer because it is putting more bicyclists on the road. They are on tanks generally. These suckers are indestructible. Even when you like throw them in the Charles and then drag them up several months later, you typically just end up with like a bunch of eels living inside. But it's quite amazing. And even when you find them in backyards 5 years later, you know, because somebody went joyriding forever, they are easily serviceable and put back on the road. They have made people feel more comfortable. Also, in addition to that, because typically there are large tourist populations who are using these bikes, so they're going slower because they're unfamiliar with the territory. I was describing to my thesis advisor earlier today how you can't really zig and zag in a Hubway, and I like it that way. It makes cities, it makes cars more comfortable around bikes because there are more of them, and they're like little homes that get you where you're going, but you're not going to win any races unless you're racing other people on Hubways.
So you said that you expected the industry to go from, let's say, 77 companies to 10 companies which are good. I understood the words, I didn't understand why. Why do you think that there are going to be less companies?
I think there's going to be a lot of Bluegogo drop-offs. We've already seen big flame-outs in other type companies. We've seen consolidations. There's lots of talk of this huge company deciding to merge two others. It's happening around us, and I just expect that there are too many players for anyone to make any sort of competitive advantage without consolidation and differentiation.
Does that mean that companies will offer you to take a bike in a different city in which they operate? If you have a membership in Boston, and the company that operates in Boston will be able to
Yes.
be able to transfer a membership.
That is one of the things that I see. Yes.
Hi, Emily. Thanks for your talk. Tess, I'm Dutch and work there in Singapore as an urban planner, also in transportation. They're very different environments, very different cultures as well. And I was wondering if and how bike share is influenced. Of course, you already touched upon that by the urban environment, the density, that kind of thing. Particularly related to that by the rider share and this mixed fleet, not just bike share but also bike owners. Does that positively influence bike sharing?
Well, I do like to say that all of the people I've successfully convinced to sign up for bike share have already owned bicycles. It's one of the #1 things that people are like, well, but I already have a bike. And the way in which I go about that is to say, yes, but the added flexibility of not being responsible for your bike getting stolen because it's in a dark alleyway because that's the only place where there was a pole, all the way through to it's raining in the morning, so I'm gonna take the bus and I'm gonna bike home. I was one of those converts. It took me a year of grad school before I signed up for a Hubway membership. And it kept happening to me where all of my friends were like, oh, we're gonna go out to this restaurant after class, and it served dollar burgers, because we were poor, and they'd be like, oh, we're just gonna take Hubways there because it's gonna be freezing later and I don't feel like going across the windy Mass Ave Bridge on my way back to my apartment. So I kept finding myself in these situations. I think they definitely complement each other. I've got friends who do a lot of really hardcore cycling, who really like padded shorts. I am not one of those people. But they have their bikes, they go on long rides, they love it, but when they're going to work, when they're going on errands, they choose bike share. I think they're huge complements to each other, and not replacements in all cases. Although my tires on my bike are flat in my apartment.
Additionally, do you think, because I found that particularly in Singapore case, there was a very small share of people that actually rode a bike, so it was difficult to implement things like bike share. It's like, when it's warm, it's sweaty, why should I do that?
I think an interesting case in this way is the DC example. The growth in bicycle infrastructure alongside the growth in bike share really hugely impacted the overall mode share. Because people want to feel comfortable on a bicycle. If you dump 1,000 bicycles in a city that is not prepared, yes, maybe you'll get a little bit more traction on making more bike lanes, but you also need to, chicken and egg this and say, well, there are already people bicycling, it's going to be easier. That being said, I think one of the reasons why, bike share in Amsterdam has not taken off is because everyone owns 6 bicycles and expects that they'll replace them every year because they got stolen or end up in the canals. I personally don't understand that, but yes, it is. Every city is a special, unique flower and deserves the attention of bike share.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for being such an engaged audience. Please join me in another round of applause for thanking Emily. I want your attention for just a second because I have the unenviable position of standing between you and the food, but I have a really quick announcements. So we're going to move into the second part of our program, which is the concurrent career fair and research poster session. We have students set up with easels with some of their research posters, and then we also have the companies and the tables. We're in 2 rooms upstairs in the exhibits that are connected by a hallway. It should be pretty obvious. There is food in both rooms. So don't converge all on the first robots room. Also go to the back room, spread out. You'll get your food faster. A couple of points. Please respect the MIT Museum space that we're in. I know that sometimes the exhibits are nice counter height. Please don't put any food, plates, napkins, drinks on any of the exhibits. There are some back rooms that have exhibits. You are welcome to go see them, but you cannot bring food into them. So if you have food or drink, please keep them in the rooms where we have the tables set up and the posters set up. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, great. Then we can all head upstairs. Enjoy the rest of the night. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I'll need to. I trust. This is exactly how many I
Oh.